Hello and welcome to Read. Today I'm finally getting around to doing a great book tag that was created, I believe in collaboration with To Readers It May Concern and the Linguist Library. This is the Beauty in Books tag, and it's a really cool tag. It's essentially just 8 different categories or subcategories of beauty and giving book recommendations or books that kind of fulfill the category of, beauty in concept or beauty in opening lines, etc. And I saw the tag and I thought, oh, it's really cool, but I had some ideas for it, and basically I dawdled for a long time, but finally came around and realized that what I wanted to do was to combine it with a different type of video that I usually do, which is 5 book and art combination videos. So today we are talking about 8 book and art combinations, all specifically relating to the concept or the category of beauty. So I'm going to give a beauty in concept book, and then also a beauty in concept work of art. And it doesn't have to be like a painting, it can be music or of course painting or whatever. But yeah, I thought that would be cool. And what I like is that in the other videos that I do, in those other combinations, the works of art seem to have a sort of essence or a connectivity to them. But in this one, I'm actually able to afford to have kind of separate or different approaches where the works of art are not related at all, but both of them, to me, have some beauty in their concept or beauty in their whatever. So it's been kind of fun. This is probably going to be a long video because I know that my other videos, which are only 5 works of art, books and works of art, already go for a while. So I'll try and get a hustle on. And yeah, I'll also mention that the way in which the book is beautiful in concept, I'm going to try and vary that from the way in which the work of art is beautiful in concept. So yeah, you'll get what I mean as I go through. But starting up, beauty in concept. Thought about this for a while. I kind of knew straight away what it was going to be, but I was trying to think of other books that it might be. I really can't say anything other than Robert Burton's Anatomy of Melancholy. I just recently read this and I made a video about it. I still stand by that this is just one of these books that I'm so happy that exists, and reading through and going through and finding that Burton, who was himself a lifelong melancholiac, he essentially just devoted his life to studying and researching and creating this book that tried to diagnose exactly what caused melancholy and all of the bits of the past and references from science and from literature and so on, and myths and fables. But the thing that really stands out is that he's deliberately crafted this voice, and he says this explicitly, where he says he wanted to create this work that would still speak to you even after you'd finished reading it. And I really feel that he nailed that. Like, he just so perfectly created that grandfatherly voice of like going and getting advice. And I know that it's such an enormous thing, and I don't think many people are ever really going to read it, but I do think that it's kind of the most beautiful concept for a book. It's just so pure, and so it was a clear winner for me for a beautiful concept for a book. For a work of art, I'm going to recommend something a little bit wild. This is Morton Subotnick's album, Silver Apples of the Moon. And the reason I'm recommending this is it's a very experimental 1964 essentially noise album. It's not really the sort of thing you can dance to unless you're kind of like me, but it should basically show you how well I can dance. But the reason why I like the album so much and I love the concept of the album is that Morton Subotnick talked very explicitly about saying, we're on the precipice of this new technology being invented. He essentially asked Buchla, who made the modular synthesis systems, he said, I want to be able to do this thing, no black and white keys. I don't want any of that, because Subotnick didn't want to make new old music. He was like, there's no point just still playing music with 12 tones and following simple harmony and melody ideas, but with electronic computers. He wanted to make new music, and if you go and listen to this album, it's unlistenable to if you are listening to it as old music. But if you're just thinking, wow, like 1 year after like a whole new technology is invented, he had the kind of courage to say, like, I'm making my statement, this is what I think music is going to be, in a Ornette Coleman type of making the shape of jazz to come. So just the concept of someone being so willing to experiment, and he says, like, all of the stuff, Mozart, Beethoven, is all still really great, but if I can just do what I can at the very start of this technology to make some sort of statement, knowing full well that it's going to go on and be developed into a lot of, breakbeat and a lot of great stuff from, like Venetian snares and whatnot. Thanks again to Readers It May Concern for hipping me to Venetian snares. So yeah, my recommendation for just beautiful in concept, because it's a person who's like at a new technology, probably doesn't really know the best way to use this technology, but deciding, I'm just going to do a little bit of innovation, say that, okay, you can make this sound, and then let history be better than me, or let the future be better than me, and let myself be the first step in this great like historic moment. So Silver Apples of the Moon by Morton Subotnick. I recommend it. I mean, it's hard to listen to, but I recommend checking it out, at least because of how great of a character Morton Subotnick is. Next up, best opening lines, and this was a little bit hard because I've already made a video talking about best opening lines, and even in that video I already added the kind of restriction that I couldn't use any of the top 100 opening lines that showed up on this list that I found. So I was really struggling for a long time to think of a best opening line. But the way that I did it, and sort of the way that I did it in that video as well, was I just thought, hey, are there even any opening lines that I remember off the top of my head? And one that recently stuck out to me, which I do want to read now, is The Wasteland by T.S. Eliot. The opening line, which I think is just beautiful in that it is so punctual, and that, I'll just read it. April is the cruelest month, breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. It's pretty stunning, right? I just think, like, the middle of spring is the cruelest month, and breeding lilacs out of the dead land, mixing memory and desire, stirring dull roots with spring rain. Wow. What a just, and I've gotten kind of back on a T.S. Eliot kick, because I read this collection ages ago, like so long ago that I don't even remember it, and I basically need to go through, but I went through and did one quick read of The Wasteland again to try and reignite it. But yeah, I'm basically doing this one as a great, beautiful opening line, just because it's kind of fits in with the category, and I haven't mentioned it in any other video. Favorite opening line for a work of art. We're doing another album, and I know this is going to be crazy, because you're going to say, hey, read Red. Surely this album would be better as, Catharsis or something like that. But I'm actually going to recommend John Coltrane's A Love Supreme for the best opening line. And the reason why, so John Coltrane's A Love Supreme, brilliant jazz album. It's kind of a jazz spiritual album. It was so important that basically it started a religion, like a kind of low-key cult religion, where people were worshipping John Coltrane as a saint. And even that church was going on for quite a while. It only closed around COVID. But I think even though there's so much that has been talked about with the album, with it being such a transcendental spiritual masterpiece, I think that just actually thinking about the fact that the album starts with a goddamn gong, like just a gong, and then Coltrane playing these really beautiful, just this open E sus sounds, like Quotiner, of course, playing all the like chordal voicings and whatnot, while Coltrane and then just like, you know, hanging out on this E sus sound, and then of course Jimmy Garrison coming in. What more could you want? It's like the best, like what a stunning statement. And like if you're thinking about all of these as different opening lines, Coltrane then comes in. And that sound, by the way, is exactly the same as the intro. Just these sus4 sounds. But yeah, I just like really thinking about it, and it's got this great, I mean, the album, it could be Beauty in Character if we think about John Coltrane as a person. It could be Beauty in Catharsis, like I said, just thinking about that whole ending after the psalm is read and then it resolves back to the E, and you're just like, oh my God. I think I'm honestly just going to go and listen to it again after I film this video, but I'm going to actually give it as Beauty in Opening Lines, because just the way that he's able to so stunningly say, gong, let's get ready. I'm about to take you on an experience, and being so sure of himself and having such a punctual, beautifully singable opening line. John Coltrane's I Love Supreme, that's getting my number one spot as a work of art that has a beautiful opening line. Next up, Beauty in Character. So focusing on specific characters, this is going to be kind of similar actually, because there's a sort of warmth that each of these characters and people have. I don't have the physical book with me, but I'm actually going to say, for a beautiful character, I'm going to say Mario Incandenza from Infinite Jest. And I know that that's maybe a kind of common thing, like Mario has just some of the most heartbreaking lines in that book where he's talking about I can't even firstly I can't even really say it because there are chances that there's going to be spoilers, but there's this scene where Mario is just walking around and he's like shaking the hands of homeless people because he's just trying to sort of connect with them and like realize and understand that they're real living people who are there. And I just feel like Mario Incandenza is, in the context of a book where every character is so cerebral and just thinking so much about everything that they're doing, like the fact that Wallace crafted one sincere, real character it's almost like Mario is sort of like a character that you meet in a dream and then you wake up and you just realize you're crying for some reason. I don't know how else to explain it other than that. And I think that Mario Incandenza is a really great example of just a beautiful character, especially, and it kind of highlights, because you kind of think, you kind of forget that Wallace is even able to make characters like this because of the way that he writes and so on. But yeah, Mario Incandenza is definitely going to be my pick for Beauty in Character. And a similar thing, I realized I've now talked about music 3 times in a row, but trust me, I've got some other not music related picks coming up. But in terms of Beauty in Character, when I think about it, I'm in the works of art, I'm trying to think of artists who are beautiful and who carry themselves in such a way that almost the work of art that they do is secondary to their own character and their own essence, and the way, like the charm and just the fullness and the richness that they bring to everything that they do. And really, there's no one who embodies this for me more than Ella Fitzgerald. She is like, and as a jazz musician, sometimes I'm going and listening to her music because it's great to learn songs by learning the original and learning the lyrics at the same time as the melody. But whenever I listen to her, I will literally just like start crying. She has this such beautiful, she's just like capital B beautiful in everything that she does, in the charm, in the virtuosity, in the way that she is so assured of herself and the way that she plays. And there are times when she's singing, like there's some albums with Joe Pass where she's not exactly kind of really on it, but she just always carries herself in such resolute Ella-ness that Ella Fitzgerald without a shadow of a doubt, I think is one of the most beautiful artists. Probably the only other competitor would be Thelonious Monk, but yeah, Ella I think really just stands above and beyond for that. So as you can see, the beauty and character kind of similarities there, but yeah, Mario Incandenza for a book character and Ella Fitzgerald for a real life person. Next up, the subcategory Beauty in Pain, and this was a hard one because I find that there are works of art that you can think of that were created as the result or the consequence of pain, but I sometimes fear that liking those works of art actually comes, it's almost like a fetishization of pain, and we are sort of loving that the artists suffered because they created this, but really it was kind of actively detrimental to their life. And I think that a good example of that, again, skipping over to the art side, is In Utero by Nirvana, where it's like, it's extremely raw and you can tell that, like, you know, Kurt Cobain is really physically suffering, and I don't necessarily think that album was worth the mental anguish that he was going through. Hot take. And so what I tried to think of was people who were in pain, who knew that they were in pain, knew that they were channeling their pain to create something even better. And so the two recommendations I have for a book is Wittgenstein's Nephew by Thomas Bernhard, where I think that, and again, I've not read that much of Bernhard, but I did make a video on this. I just feel like Wittgenstein's Nephew was almost like Bernhard realizing, now I actually have something to complain about, because A, he's in a hospital, he's kind of dying from his own medical conditions, but he's like taken all of the focus and put all of the focus onto his friend Paul, who's the nephew of Ludwig Wittgenstein, and is just essentially, while he's kind of relegated his own suffering to the background, and he's giving the entire like limelight to Paul, just to say, like, you know, this is what can happen when a person has genius but isn't able to properly manifest or use it. And he still gets in like his digs here and there talking about everything else, but I think that was something where Bernhard realized, you know, I've kind of notorious for being a bit of an old man yelling at the clouds. However, even though right now I could be complaining so much about my own physical pain, I've decided to kind of highlight a similar mental anguish that my friend is going through. And it's just like a beautiful work, and it's actually beautiful because of the pain that is present. And so yeah, that's my pick for a book that is beautiful in pain. And a different beauty in pain, this maybe slightly gets into fetishizing, but the reason I'm kind of forgiving or allowing it is because of how long this went on. And I think that beauty in pain for some paintings definitely has to be Goya's black paintings, because I came across and found this really cool YouTube like documentary just talking about his life, especially pre and post him going deaf. And I think that there is such a stark, insane difference that is like incredible to see, just how much his paintings changed from between those two periods. And although yes, the works of art were created through and channeling his intense paranoia and his intense fear, I think it's also clear that it's like the best work that he did, and he was in this period for so long that I reckon he had some cognizance of realizing, like, oh, I'm really actually doing the best work that I've ever done and that I'm ever going to do, and they are just so haunting. Like, they are such stunning examples of beauty. Goya's black paintings, I think, is really beautiful because of its pain. Next up, this one is Beauty in Incompleteness, and unfortunately, I'm going to have to kind of bend the rules a little bit here, because there are some examples of books that I think are beautiful because of them being incomplete, but either one, someone's already talked about it, or B, I haven't even read them, like the Man Without Qualities and stuff. The other one that I think is a good example is the Brothers Karamazov. But and this is going to be crazy, bear with me. I think a book that is beautiful because of its incompleteness is Don Quixote. And I know what you might be saying. Read Red. Don Quixote is complete. What are you talking about? I don't buy it. I'm going to be honest. Who was it? Was it Samuel Johnson who said Don Quixote is the only book that I wish was longer? I really can't help but feel like, and again, I'm going to have to talk about incompleteness, which means I'm going to have to talk about spoilers. If you haven't read Don Quixote, just skip ahead. But I really can't help but feel like the appearance of the real world false Quixote was so damning to Cervantes that he really rushed to the finish line to get this book finished. And I think that there is a real beauty in the fact that the book seems like it could have gone so many different other places, but like the existence of this real life competitor, this false Quixote, it's so shaped the book that even in my video where I'm talking about it, I kind of hypothesized that Cervantes himself organized the false Quixote, which of course is not true, but you never know. But I just felt like the way that it was sort of like he made this genius move to kind of finish the book and get part 2 written in the presence of this false Quixote, which was really, really going to risk superseding and basically risk making him not need to write the rest of it, which would have made it literally incomplete. But yeah, I just can't help but imagine what would Don Quixote Part 2 have been like without the false Quixote, which that's why I'm so fascinated by thinking about the Don Quixote as being incomplete. So yeah, let me know what you think. I would really, really love to get some of your opinions about that. Work of art that is beautiful because of its incompleteness, I'm going to say Gustave Doré's etchings of the Raven, which, if I remember correctly, firstly, shout out to my brother for getting me this beautiful Gustave Doré collection here, which has got fantastic written on the side. But the Raven was some of the last etchings that he did, and of course with the themes of the Raven, it's about like death and this this eternal realizing that you're coming to the end of your life, and this may be hearsay. It might be that Doré thought, oh no, this is really done, this is complete, I'm happy with it. But compared to the usual insane preciseness of the rest of his works, lots of the etchings in the Raven have this misty, incomplete quality that basically complements the incompleteness of complements the idea of incompleteness, and really reiterates the themes of the Raven itself. So I just think that in terms of a work of art that I know is incomplete, there's plenty of works of art that are incomplete, but it's kind of just sad, or it's just tragic that they're incomplete. Of course, like unfinished symphonies and whatnot. But yeah, I think that Doré's The Raven etchings they actually get an extra quality, an extra bit of value, even though they are technically incomplete. Next up, Beauty and Place. Here's a fun one. Flatland. Flatland, I think, is such a beautiful setting, a beautiful composition. I think that I actually describe the book as a masterclass in world building, because it's just shapes, dude. It's literally just shapes. But he's developed, so Edwin Abbott is the writer, and he's developed this world where there's this kind of hierarchy and this social system of all these different shapes, and the more sides you have, the more closer you are to divinity. And then we got this sphere that appears and takes this little insignificant square on a journey. Yeah, just thinking about uniquely built worlds and uniquely composed places, Flatland definitely has a quality of beauty to it that I can't quite pin, but it's definitely there, and it's definitely unique in its place or its setting. For a work of art that I think is beautiful in its place, I'm actually going to say Andrei Tarkovsky's film Nostalgia. Specifically the setting of the film, because it's got this mist, like this mistiness to it, where it's kind of sort of detached from reality. However, the only interfacing and interaction that we have with reality is that we're hearing things on the telephone, and we're hearing things on the radio. There's a very kind of explicit war or something going on in the background. Maybe it's not explicit if it's something, but I feel like there's this verging on it being not quite an Arcadia, but just this so rural that life can't touch it. It's really, really cool, and it doesn't have the same it's not as eerie as Stalker, for example, but it most definitely has a kind of subtly sublime beauty to it, where you almost think like, wow, people could really live here forever. No one's going to age. Nothing's going to happen. It's like, really, it's like a place that exists in your memory, which is so cool, and it kind of ages and decays as your memory does. But yeah, Nostalgia by Tarkovsky is slowly becoming, I love all of his films, but it's really got to be up there with, Andrei Rublev and Stalker for me. Next up, Beauty in Time. This was a hard one. This was literally, I didn't come up with this one for ages, and I workshopped so many examples. Firstly, because lots of people have already talked about great books that explore time, like Proust and Mrs. Dalloway. This is going to be a slightly different one, and maybe it's a bit of a stretch, but the Beauty in Time that I'm going to recommend are the final two stories that Ryunosuke Akutagawa wrote, or the final two at least in this collection, which are his autobiography, his autobiographical works, The Life of a Stupid Man and Spinning Gears. And the reason I love those and the way that they think about time is because, again, this is one of those books that could have fallen, or one of those works that could have fallen into the subcategory of beauty amidst pain, but I really think that this would have been verging on fetishizing the pain and glutting on it. But I think that Akutagawa made some really stunning innovations, for me at least, in the way to think about time, and specifically one's own time, because at the end of his life he decided to write two autobiographies basically, which were The Life of a Stupid Man, just moments of intense poetic beauty spread out over the whole course of my life. And some of them were really stunning and really beautiful. And then the other one, Spinning Gears, is 2-3 days of me just right in my mental anguish, just compacted his life into as small a period as possible and as long a period as possible. So I definitely got a lot out of that, and I think that it's slightly macabre, but it is a beautiful way of thinking about time. It's definitely outright painful, but I think that in terms of actually it being a net worth and an innovation, I think it's more beautiful in the way that he thinks about one's own time. The last two stories, they're called Life of a Stupid Man and Spinning Gears by Ryunosuke Akutagawa. And my art recommendation for time is this is maybe taking it a little bit literally, but I'm going to recommend D'Angelo's album Voodoo, which is so influential. It's like William Blake. It's so ahead of its time that it's still ahead of our time. It came out back in 2000, and if you just listen to the first song, which is Player Player, I think, it just dropped a bomb on the world of groove in music, and it is unfetishized unfathomable that certain pieces sound the way they do, like especially Player Player. It is mixed brilliantly. The way that the groove happens, it is like everyone is making all the exact correct mistakes. Everyone is perfectly displaced for this alchemical concoction to create maximum groove. And some parts are, or some pieces are groovy, like more stretchy than others, and Spanish Joint, for example, is super groovy, but it doesn't have a lot of that same push and pull. But yeah, D'Angelo's Voodoo, I think, in terms of just being like, oh my god, I've just bore witness to like people who have such galaxy brain understandings of groove and rhythm and time feel that like you could just study that album for years, and people still have, and people have made bad reproductions of it, and I've made bad reproductions of it, but it is such a kind of bountiful resource to constantly go back to and just be like, holy shit, I cannot believe anyone can have such a sophisticated understanding of time. So D'Angelo's Voodoo, that is my work of art that I think has beauty in time. And lucky last, beauty in catharsis. So unfortunately, to readers it may concern, stole my preferred answer, which would have been Moby Dick. But going through and thinking about books that have catharsis, to some degree, the Recognitions has this, but I think I'm actually going to give it to the Bhagavad Gita, which is part of the Mahabharata, which I don't have on me. Well, actually, I do have a whole Mahabharata on me, and it's in that kind of back pile there, but I don't have the specific work, the Bhagavad Gita, on me, but it is essentially a conversation that occurs between Arjuna and Krishna, and Arjuna is like, oh dude, I gotta go and fight my family members, this sucks, what am I gonna do? And Krishna's like, well dude, let's talk about everything. Let's just have a conversation, man. And there are some like stunning moments when Krishna reveals his full form to Arjuna, and it's just like full on psychedelic experience. But just getting to the end of it and realizing like, wow, really a conversation can be a intense cathartic experience. It's not the best example I think for this one, but at least it's a little bit unique, and I wanted to recommend it because I still think that the Bhagavad Gita has got some great moments of like spiritual catharsis that, kind of hot take, I didn't really get so much in the Bible. I thought that the Bible was so rich, and I know this is wild to think about, but I didn't necessarily experience catharsis reading the Bible. But maybe I'll change my mind on that. Maybe I'll have already changed my mind by the time this video is uploaded. But the Bhagavad Gita is my example for a work that has a catharsis, and my final work of art that talks about having catharsis, I'm going to recommend Radiohead's song "How to Disappear Completely." I recently went through and did a full just Radiohead discography binge because I'd only heard, a couple of songs, and I was at work when I was doing it, and I remember when How to Disappear Completely came on, and I was just like, this is not the right place to be listening to this. So after I came home, put on some earphones and just like really truly experienced its. And there's a great video essay by the YouTube channel Listening In, where he talks about the arranging in How to Disappear Completely. But yeah, that's just such a kind of obvious example of a catharsis that's in music, but really just something that is so beautiful. It's quite compact. It occurs in a short period of time, and it's expertly orchestrated so that you get this full-on bombastic experience. Radiohead's How to Disappear Completely. That is my choice for beauty in catharsis. Thank you for tolerating and sitting through this very long video. Can't wait to edit this one. And I hope you all enjoyed. Thank you again To Readers It May Concern and the Linguist Library for coming up with this tag. Again, I really hope I'm getting that correct, but I'll add all of the on-screen annotations if I've gotten it wrong. Once more, thank you for watching. I hope you all enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next video.